Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We were last reading a dialogue in which the Maharshi was bestowing instruction about the nature of Maya and the nature of the self. We'll pick up towards the latter portion of that dialogue. Is dialogue number 280. The Maharshi says, "The pure self is simple being. It does not associate itself with objects and become conscious as in the wakeful state. What you now call consciousness in the present state is associated consciousness, requiring brain, mind, body, etc. to depend upon. But in sleep, consciousness persisted without these." The disciple said, "But I do not know the consciousness in sleep." The Maharshi replies, "Who is not aware of it? You admit I am. You admit I was in sleep. The state of being is yourself." The disciple then questioned, "Do you mean to say that sleep is self-realization?" The Maharshi responds, "It is the self. Why do you talk of realization? Is there a moment when the self is not realized? If there be such a moment, the other moment might be said to be one of realization. There is no moment when the self is not, nor when the self is not realized. Why pick out sleep for it? Even now you are self-realized." The disciple said, "But I do not understand." The Maharshi answered, "Because you are identifying the self with the body, give up the wrong identity and the self is revealed." Then the disciple said, "But this does not answer my question to help me to get rid of Maya, that is, attachment." The Maharshi answers, "This attachment is not found in sleep. It is perceived and felt now. It is not your real nature. On whom is this accretion? If the real nature is known, these exist not. If you realize the self, the possessions are not perceived. That is getting rid of Maya. Maya is not objective that it could be got rid of in any other way." The pure self is simple being. Just being. Not being this, not being that. Not with a form or modification. Just being. That is, the self is not an object to be obtained. It is the nature of your very existence. It does not associate itself with objects and become conscious as in the wakeful state. Being is referred to as consciousness, sat chit. But it does not become associated with objects. We should not mistake the awareness of objects, gross or subtle, for pure consciousness. pure consciousness is pure being, and that alone is the self. You are neither an object, nor are you a perceiver of objects. What you now call consciousness in the present state is associated consciousness requiring brain, mind, body, etc. Etc. means senses, prana, to depend upon. But in sleep, consciousness persisted without these. Trace inwardly consciousness to its real nature. It is not the senses, it is not the mind. What depends on the senses and depends on the mind, that's not consciousness. That's illusory perception, illusory experience. In sleep, when there was no activity of your mind or your senses, no perception or recollection of a body, consciousness persisted. It is not aware of something. To be aware of something is, as Sri Bhagavan refers to it, associated consciousness. Pure consciousness does not depend on anything else, but is self-existent. It is in the depths of pure consciousness that self-knowledge shines. As consciousness is eternal, so is self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is consciousness, bereft of all associations. That consciousness is your being. Being is the sought knowledge. The disciple then said, "But I do not know the consciousness in sleep." Why does he say that? We should not mix up knowledge with thinking. You do not think in deep dreamless sleep, but consciousness still shines, still knows. Sri Bhagavan replies, "Who is not aware of it? You admit I am. You admit I was in sleep. The state of being is yourself. You exist. Your existence is self-evident. This self-evident existence is, while awake, while asleep, unchanged. Yet the mind and all its content does change. What is that ever-present existence? This is what you should make every effort to inquire into. Who is not aware of it? Who is not aware of consciousness, of being? Are there two of you? The self to be known, and the self who says, I do not know? Existence is singular. The self is only one. How can the self not know itself? The state of being is yourself. What is referred to as a state of being is non-objective. It is yourself. And what is referred to truly as yourself is being, only being. And not an I, a mind, a body, etc. The disciple had then asked, do you mean to say that sleep is self-realization? The Maharshi replies, it is the self. Why do you talk of realization? Is there a moment when the self is not realized? If there be such a moment, the other moment might be said to be one of realization. There is no moment when the self is not, nor when the self is not realized. Why pick out sleep for it? Even now you are self-realized. The self is the reality. It is immutable. There is no time when the self is not. There is no time when you are not the self, for the self is only one, as well as changeless. It is the reality. There is no such thing as realizing it in the sense of making it more real. It is the reality. And as he said it was the state of being, there is no existence to the unreality. For being exists. And a supposed non-being would be non-existent. There is no moment when the self is not, nor when the self is not realized. We can speak of a state of realization and an unrealized state only from an assumed individual who stands apart from the self. But inquiring, who am I? Is any such individual to be found? There are not two selves, so that one could be ignorant of another. Inquiry resolves the duality born of imagination and shows the self alone to be the reality. It is in its own state always, and that is the only state that there is. to imagine otherwise is sometimes called Maya. The disciple declared that he did not understand. So the Maharshi instructed him, saying, because you are identifying the self with the body, give up the wrong identity and the self is revealed. For self-knowledge to shine without obscuration for you, all that is necessary is to abandon the misidentifications. The primary misidentification is with the body. If you cease to misidentify with the body, what then is your state? What then is your nature? Abandonment of misidentification and the revelation of the self, which is then self-evident, resolves the entirety of samsara and destroys illusion at its very core. The disciple in the dialogue, though, did not yet grasp this and said, but this does not answer my question. Actually, it did. To help me get rid of Maya, which he has defined as attachment. The Maharshi concludes his instruction to him saying, this attachment is not found in sleep. It is perceived and felt now. It is not your real nature. Whatever is your real nature is always you and always yours. If attachment appears at one time and disappears at another, then in truth it has no connection to you. Consider all that you might regard yourself as being attached to in this world. And then contemplate your experience that you have in deep dreamless sleep. When you're devoid of even the thought of those attachments. Your existence, your being did not change. And if attachment were really part of you, such should not disappear at any time. Whenever you are, it should be, and since you always are, it should always be. But that's not the experience of anyone. Regard that as you or yours truly. That does not disappear, not even for a moment. It is not your real nature. On whom is this accretion? Attachment, etc., illusion, is apparently being added to someone. Who is that someone? The illusion, the attachments, do not stand up of their own and say, we exist. They depend on someone in order to be conceived or experienced. Who is that someone? What is the real nature of that one? If the real nature is known, these exist not. Attachment, illusion, and such appear for someone. Inquiring to know who that someone is. The real self is known as pure being, as pure consciousness. But that has no attachment, that has no illusion. Thereby the illusion and the ego to whom the illusion would appear vanish. They are destroyed in the inquiry that's of the nature of pure knowledge. If the real nature is known, these exist not. If you realize the self, the possessions are not perceived. In the realization of the self, the sense of I and the sense of my are gone. In the realization of the self, the perceiver and the perceived are similarly gone. In the realization of the self, the subject and all of his objects are gone. If you realize the self, the possessions are not perceived. That is, you perceive that there are neither possessions nor a possessor. This is true or profound non-attachment. That is getting rid of Maya. Maya is not objective, that it could be got rid of in any other way. Maya is illusion. Illusion is just delusion. How is one to eliminate delusion? The illusion, which seemingly makes the real appear as unreal and the unreal appear as if real, is not objective. So what can one do to eliminate it? You can know yourself. To attempt to eliminate illusion without knowledge of the self is just further immersion in illusion. But turning within to know the self that you truly are, illusion, being non-existent in character, vanishes. So then, what is real? Only by inquiry can you know this. What is the self? Inquire and know this. What is the state of being? It is indeed yourself. Inquire and thus know this. November 15th, 1936. The writer has entitled this dialogue, Sparks from the Anvil. A certain man who claims to have been Sri Maharshi's quondam disciple has filed a suit in the court praying for a declaration that he is the legitimate sarvadhikari of the ashram. Sri Maharshi was examined on commission. There was a crowd, but the proceedings went on smoothly in the room in the northeast. The following are a few tidbits therefrom. Sri Bhagavan's answers were quite spontaneous and smooth. Yes, believe it or not, as strange as it sounds, someone brought a court case against the ashram. Weird, huh?
Yeah.
And claimed to be basically the chief manager of Sarvadhikari of the ashram. Question. To which ashram does Sri Bhagavan belong? Now one has to understand ashram can refer to a place, Ramana ashram, a stage of life, the four ashramas, the various stages of life. So the Maharshi says, though, Ati ashrama, beyond the four stages. Question, what is it? The Maharshi replies, it is beyond the four commonly known ashramas, that is, the various stages of life. Question, is it shastraic, that is mentioned in the scriptures? The Maharshi replies, yes, it is mentioned in the Shastras. Question, are there others of the same type besides yourself? The Maharshi answers, there may be. Questioner, have there been any? The Maharshi answers, Shuka, Rishabha, Jadabharata, and others. The names of great holy people from the past. Question. You left home at an early age because you had no attachment for home and property. But here there is property in the ashram. How is it? The Maharshi answers, I do not seek it. Property is thrust on me. I neither love nor hate it. Questioner. Are they given to you? The Maharshi replies, they are given to the Swami, whoever he may be. But the body is considered the Swami in the world. That body is this. It reduces itself to myself. It's amazing how much spiritual instruction he can manage to bestow, even in a court proceeding. Questioner. In that case, the attachment to property is now renewed. Is it so? The Maharshi replied, I do not hate it. That is all I said. Questioner. In practical life, it amounts to what I say. The Maharshi responds, just as we live and move in practical matters. Question. Do you give upadesh? Have you ever done it? Spiritual instruction. The Maharshi replies, visitors ask questions. I answer them as well as I know. It is for them to treat my words as they please. Questioner. Is it upadesh? Is it spiritual instruction? The Maharshi replies, how shall I say how others take it? Question. Have you disciples? The Maharshi replies, I do not give upadesh in the ceremonial manner. For instance, keeping a kumbha, a pot, making puja to it, and whispering to the person. The person may call himself any disciple, my disciple or devotee. I do not consider anyone to be my disciple. I have never sought upadesh from anyone, nor do I give ceremonial upadesh. If the people call themselves my disciples, I do not approve or disapprove. In my view, all are alike. They consider themselves fit for being called disciples. What can I say to them? I do not call myself a disciple or a guru. Question. How did you approve the building of Skandashramam on the hill, which was temple land, without previously obtaining permission from the authorities? The Maharshi responded, guided by the same power which made me come here and reside on the hill. Question. When you threw away your cash, etc., within an hour after your arrival in this place, you did so because you did not desire possessions. You never touch money. There were no possessions for several years after your arrival here. How is it that donations are now accepted by the Asramam? The Maharshi replies, this practice grew up at a later stage, because a few associates began to use my name to collect funds. I did not approve of their actions, nor check them. So it is going on. One man leaves, another steps in, but the process goes on. I do not desire that contributions should be accepted, but people do not heed that advice. I do not desire to give ineffective advice. I do not therefore check them. Since money comes in, property grows spontaneously. Question. Why do you not sign your name? The Maharshi replied, the author of self-realization has furnished his answer for this question. Moreover, by what name am I to be known? I myself do not know. People have given me several names from time to time since my arrival here. If I should sign by one name, all would not understand it. So I used to say to the people seeking autographs that even if they should show my signature, people in general would not believe it to be true. Question. You do not touch money nor other offerings, I trust. The Maharshi replies, people sometimes place fruits in my hands. I touch them. Question. If you receive one kind of offering, why should you not receive money also? The Maharshi replies, I cannot eat money. What shall I do with it? Why should I take that with which I do not know what to do? Question. Why do visitors stop at the ashram? The Maharshi replies, they must know why. Question. You have no objection to anyone coming and staying here, I suppose? The Maharshi replies, no. Question. You have similarly no objection to any length of their stay? The Maharshi replies, no. If I do not find it agreeable, I will go away. That is all. A lawyer devotee asked Sri Bhagavan if the previous day's examination by commission caused much strain. The Maharshi replied, I did not use my mind, and so there was no strain. Let them examine me for 1,000 days. I don't mind. Do you see how utterly transcendent he is? Both when the answers are serious, even very practical, as well as when he has interjected quite a bit of humor. Do you see how transcendent he is? How completely non-attached he is? Do you see how undefined he is? Right from the first answer, Adi Asramam, beyond all the stages of life. Do you see how there's no misidentification with the body? Do you see how there's no confusion regarding action, no idea of being a performer of action? Do you see how disidentified he is? Right from when he says, they refer to the Swami, whoever he is. He has no connection with the illusory world, and that illusion cannot touch him. It's to reveal such as what I'm talking about here. That I believe the recorder has put this part of the court transcript in the book. Because the attorney questioning is obviously not in serious search of spiritual advice, but because of the utterly transcendent, detached, and glorious light that shines right through the Maharshi's simple and direct answers. He has put this in. just as he is, so all of us should be. Do you see how his peace was not at all disturbed? The 16th of November, 1936, Dialogue 282. A disciple asked, "Does the Tantric sadhana bring about self-realization?" The Maharshi replies, "Yes." The disciple said, "Which worship in Tantra is the best?" The Maharshi replies, "It depends on the temperament." The disciple asked, "What part does Kundalini play in bringing about self-realization?" The Maharshi responds, "Kundalini rises from any lakshya that you have, any objective, any aim." Kundalini is prana shakti, life current. The disciple said, "Different deities are said to reside in different chakras. Does one see them in the course of sadhana?" The Maharshi replies, "They can be seen if desired." The disciple then asked, "Does the path to self-realization go through samadhi?" The Maharshi replies, "They are synonymous." The disciple asked, "It is said that the Guru can make his disciple realize the self by transmitting some of his own power to him. Is it true?" The Maharshi responds, "Yes, the Guru does not bring about self-realization. He simply removes the obstacles to it. The self is always realized." The disciple asked, "Is there absolute necessity of a Guru for self-realization?" The Maharshi replies, "So long as you seek self-realization, the Guru is necessary. Guru is the self. Take Guru to be the real self and yourself as the individual self. The disappearance of the sense of duality is removal of ignorance. So long as duality persists in you, the Guru is necessary. Because you identify yourself with the body, you think the Guru too to be some body. You are not the body, nor is the Guru. You are the self, and so is the Guru. This knowledge is gained by what you call self-realization." The disciple then asked, "How can one know whether a particular individual is competent to be a Guru?" The Maharshi replies, "By the peace of mind found in his presence, and by the sense of respect you feel for him." The disciple asked, "If the Guru happens to turn out incompetent, what will be the fate of the disciple who has implicit faith in him?" The Maharshi replies, each one according to his merits. The disciple asked, what are your opinions about social reform? The Maharshi replied, self-reform automatically brings about social reform. Confine yourself to self-reform. Social reform will take care of itself. The disciple asked, what is your opinion about Gandhiji's Harijan movement? The Maharshi replies, ask him. The disciple said, is it necessary to take a bath if we touch dead bodies? The Maharshi replies, the body is a corpse. So long as one is in contact with it, one must bathe in the waters of the self. The disciple said, if the Advaita is final, why did Madhvacharya teach Dvaita, duality? The Maharshi replies, is your self Dvaita or Advaita, dual or non-dual? All systems agree on self-surrender. Attain it first, then there will be time to judge whose view is right or otherwise. The disciple asked, why do you not preach to the people to set them on the right path? The Maharshi responds, you have already decided by yourself that I do not preach. Do you know who I am and what preaching is? The disciple, is the shaving of widows among Brahmins not cruel? The Maharshi replies, this may be asked of Dharmashastris or reformers. Reform yourself first, and let us then see about the rest. Going back towards the beginning of the dialogue, the questioner first asked about Tantra, Kundalini, etc. And he asked if the path to self-realization goes through samadhi. The Maharshi said they are synonymous. That is, realization and samadhi, or the path to realization and samadhi are synonymous. Samadhi is absorption. Absorption in what? How does absorption come about? If it is absorption in the self or Brahman, how is absorption brought about? It is always a diminishing or dissolution of the ego. That which diminishes or dissolves the ego is truly a spiritual path to realization.
Just watching my experience of being absorbed as you speak. Before that absorption, I have the idea that something is going to get absorbed, like something's going to go into something. But the actual experience is quite different. The thing that is going to go somewhere, it just actually disappears. And that's very different because, the idea that it disappears is...
When the ego sense disappears, the sense of identity remains absorbed in the self. The real cannot be made any more real. But if the unreal is seen as unreal, then identity, or the sense of what is real, remains in its proper place. Such steady abidance can be referred to as samadhi.
All the concepts that I have about absorption, it's interesting, it's just they watch them fall about what I think absorption is. In each one of those concepts is some misidentification with a mind or a body or
And the ego dissolves to the degree that such misidentification is relinquished. The sense of identity remains, but is no longer confused with the object. It remains absorbed in the self. The question was then put to the Maharshi. It is said that the Guru can make his disciple realize the self by transmitting some of his own power to him. Is it true? The Maharshi replies, yes, the Guru does not bring about self-realization. He simply removes the obstacles to it. The self is always realized. The answer is a compound one. First, yes, because the realization is due to the Guru and not due to the individuality of the disciple. So he answers initially, yes. Then he says, the Guru does not bring about self-realization. Why? Because in the fourth line he says, the self is always realized. So then realization is not brought about, but realization is a term for that which remains when the unreal is discarded. He simply removes the obstacles to it. What is the obstacle to self-realization? Well, in supreme truth, there is no obstacle, the reality being only one, without a second whatsoever. But if we speak of obstacles to self-realization to be removed, what is it but illusion or ignorance? The Guru's instruction, in whatever form it takes, enables the aspirant to see ignorance as ignorance and thereby discard it. What remains is the realization, the self. That self is the one reality. The Guru reveals it by destroying false impressions to the contrary. Is there an absolute necessity of a guru for self-realization? The Maharshi says in response, so long as you seek self-realization, the guru is necessary. So long as you seek self-realization, the guru is necessary. The guru is the self. Take Guru to be the real self and yourself as the individual self. The disappearance of the sense of duality is removal of ignorance. What does the Guru do? He removes ignorance by showing it to be just ignorance. The Supreme Self appears to teach this to the individual self, so that that individual self will lose its falsely conceived individuality and be revealed as the one Supreme Self, which is what the Guru is. Guru is the self. The disappearance of the sense of duality is removal of ignorance. So long as duality persists in you, the Guru is necessary. Because you identify yourself with the body, you think the Guru too to be some body. You are not the body, nor is the Guru. Who then is Sri Ramana? He is not the body, as you are not the body. Who is Sri Bhagavan, and who are you? As long as you appear not to know this, that Guru is there, full of grace, revealing the truth. When this is comprehended, only the Guru remains, the self remains, and one's individuality is gone. You are not the body, nor is the Guru. You are the self, and so is the Guru. This knowledge is gained by what you call self-realization. The only way truly to know Sri Bhagavan as he is to realize the self that you truly are. Is it not for this purpose that his grace shines, and he's bestowed such precious instruction? How can one know whether a particular individual is competent to be a guru? The disciple did not grasp the meaning of the previous answer. For the guru is the self, not a body, not an individual. But he asked this question anyway. So the Maharshi compassionately instructs at that level. By the peace of mind found in his presence, and by the sense of respect you feel for him. The disciple asks, if the Guru happens to turn out incompetent, what will be the fate of the disciple who has implicit faith in him? The Maharshi replies, each one according to his merits. Therefore, it is entirely unnecessary for one to waste mental energy considering, is this one competent? Is that one competent? Is this a good guru? Is that a good guru? Compiling lists of who's what. Such would be the epitome of delusion. What one strives for, what one does to build up faith, never goes in vain. The next question was about asking the Maharshi's opinion about social reform. The Maharshi says, self-reform automatically brings about social reform. Confine yourself to self-reform. Social reform will then take care of itself. If we do not take care of the inner, but attempt to change the outer, curiously enough, after all the changes to the outer are made, they strangely resemble where you began. The intentions may be well meant, but if the same ignorance is within one's mind, a new situation will be created just like the old situation. The wise, therefore, place their efforts toward reform that is correcting themselves. Undoing the ignorance that they have imagined in the mind. What is your opinion about Gandhiji's Harijan movement? The Maharshi replies simply, ask him. Why does he respond in such a way? What is the use of collecting opinions about other people from other people? The entire mechanism, if we can call it such, of creating opinions in the mind, let alone searching out opinions from others, is entirely samsaric. One wants to know about, in this case, Gandhiji's movement. Obviously, you should ask Gandhiji, not somebody else. The next question is it necessary to take a bath if we touch dead bodies? Not only for hygiene purposes, but for purification purposes. The Maharshi wisely answers, the body is a corpse. So long as one is in contact with it, one must bathe in the waters of the self. That speaks for itself. No comment is necessary. The next question was, if the Advaita, if non-duality is final, why did Madhvacharya teach duality? Madhvacharya came long after Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya has taught pure Advaita, pure non-duality. Madhvacharya comes at the end of the various famous acharyas and taught total duality. So the questioner thinks maybe the Advaita was not final, otherwise why did this duality come about in these teachings? The answer is clearly obvious. If Madhvacharya had understood Advaita, he never would have written about Dvaita. But that's not taken up here. The Maharshi responds, is yourself Dvaita or Advaita? Is yourself dual or non-dual? All systems agree on self-surrender. Whether one's a dualist or a non-dualist or some qualified version in between, everyone agrees that the ego should be destroyed. One should surrender entirely to the Absolute, whether called the Lord or called the Self. Attain it first, then there will be time to judge whose view is right or otherwise. Without such self-surrender, how could one truly understand non-duality? Without truly understanding it, what's the use of comparing and contrasting it with other teachings? It is by the experience of ego dissolution that the true value of non-duality becomes abundantly clear. Why do you not preach to the people to set them on the right path? The Maharshi responds, you have already decided by yourself that I do not preach. That is the questioner's concept only. Do you know who I am and what preaching is? Do you know who I am and what preaching is? Here, take preaching to mean spiritually instructing, declaring what is the right path. How is such declaration made? What is it? And do we know who He is? Without knowing who He is and what instruction consists in, what would be the use of conjuring up some opinion about it? Yes, who is Sri Bhagavan? And what precisely is his teaching? Whoever knows that knows truly and is happy at heart. Shanti. Shanti.